Hello everybody, I'm Don Burgess, and today I'll be answering your questions on Cooke Optics TV. I think point of view. I think it's important for the camera to be in a position that connects you to the character. Now, it doesn't have to be an over-the-shoulder and a clean point of view. It can be a modified version of that because you got to sell this idea. You got to keep the audience connected to the character. And I'll give you a quick example, and that's Castaway in the sequence where the plane crashes. The director never cuts outside the airplane and sees the airplane crash into the ocean into an objective angle, right? Because it takes you out of the movie. A lot of people say, well, I got to see the plane crash. Well, no, you don't. I mean, you look at that sequence, it's terrifying. You know, you're seeing it from the Tom Hanks point of view, from in that cabin when you hit the ocean and everything that's set up. So if you look at the storytelling elements in that particular sequence, I think it's a great way to illustrate that point. The storytelling is excellent, and the finding of the watch and what that means in the rest of the movie and all of that and what happens. And building the suspense when he opens up the Band-Aid in the bathroom right before all hell breaks loose. That's dramatic structure, and that's how it should be. So, point of view. Practical lighting. I think that we need to create the illusion that this is really happening, and depending upon the movie, how realistic the lighting needs to be. You know, if it's complete fantasy, you need to take the audience into a fantasy with your lighting. If it's, you know, a dramatic scene in a room, it should really feel as natural as it possibly can be. And the real key is to make it dramatic, yet feel real. And I think when you blend those two together, you can really get the audience. You know, being introduced to, you know, Robert Zemeckis has been a godsend in my career. I mean, the opportunity to work with such a great filmmaker is, especially one that loves the camera and wants to use the camera as a character in a story. You know, that's what's made all of this worth it. I think at the end of the day of what we go through to make movies, to be able to work with filmmakers like that makes all the difference in the world. For Moonlight, I would say that, you know, an eighth of CTB on a tungsten unit in a backlight position creates a good feel for Moonlight. I'm not an overly blue kind of night guy in general. So I think it's how at the end of the day, it's your gut. You look at it, you gotta like it. And so that's what makes it all a little different. You know, we all have, you can only light from so many places, right? There's only so many things you can do. But yet we all tend to have the ability to take our look someplace. It's not intentional. I can't verbally tell you why. Sometimes I do what I do. A lot of times I think it's just coming from inside, say this is what it needs to look like. And a lot of it is motivated by perhaps the rehearsals that went on that you just saw. I think what's changed in modern filmmaking from the days when we all shot film and it was projected on a movie screen in a big theater, you see things that are all over the map, which I think is great, because at the end of the day, we're just trying to make that audience feel something and be connected to this story. You don't want everything to be 100% pure all the time. You want the imagery, no matter how it's put together, to connect that audience to the story. Now, even in Contact, which I shot a lot of it in 65 millimeter, I also shot 16 millimeter. I also shot Super 8. I also shot some Betamax video, because at the time in the story, that's what was being used for home movies at the time, and you see her grow up. So I think that, you know, open your eyes to every way of collecting data, as we call it now, to tell your story. It's important to, out front, figure out what's the best way, what's the best image to put up on that screen right now for this scene. And I think that's the question you got to ask yourself, because there's so many things available to you now. There's so many places to go. It's a little terrifying, but you can't stop looking. You can't stop searching. At the end of the day, be a storyteller, number one, and use your cinematography to help tell that story. Listen, if you don't go out day one and you're not nervous about the way this movie's going to look, then I think it's time to hang it up. Because you got to keep searching every day for the right way to do it. You know, as soon as you start sitting in the tent and not coming out and looking at the meters, I think that's a problem. I think you got to engage. I think you got to be involved. I think you got to help. A lot of times the cinematographer is going to be the most experienced guy on the set, and you got to use that experience to help people make their movies. And so stay engaged, stay involved, fight for what you think is right, and be ready to stand behind the director and help make his movie. Well, I say you better be very passionate about wanting to do the job. If you don't love it, move on, because it's not easy. It's not easy on your personal life, dealing with all the elements of what the job really is. And if you're passionate about it and you love it, then I say dive in. I mean, the best advice I got when I was young, I went to Art Center College of Design, I started making movies. A guy said, go buy a camera, start shooting. I said, what? This is what you want to do, right? Yes. Okay. Well, the only way you're going to figure this out at the end of the day is to shoot. And you got to shoot a lot. And you got to keep shooting. And it'll all start making sense to you, and you'll get better at it. And if you have any talent at this, then you're going to get a sense of that and keep going in that direction. So years ago, I started using eye lights on top of cameras, but I didn't like anything that was actually manufactured that I could find. They were all too hard and directional and didn't feel right. And so, it started with KinoFlow tubes with tape, basically, on top of the matte box. And so then I started saying, well, this, we can do better than this. So we started making little boxes that attached in different ways. And so then we came up with a formula that worked pretty well. Got to a certain point where my gaffer didn't travel with me anymore. That era had ended, where your team went with you. And you have to pick up crews wherever you go in the world. So everywhere I went, I'd meet a new gaffer, and I'd say, hey, this is what I need. This is what the last guy had made for me. Can you do something like this? And I said, by the way, jokingly, I said, this is a worldwide competition. I want to see yours in relationship to his. It's turned into literally every guy trying to up the last guy, which is fantastic, and especially as the equipment's changed, it's gotten better, and it's become remote control, and it's become, all these things that make it even better and better and better. The diffusion materials that you put on it. So now in the last movie, which is the Christmas Chronicles 2, I shot Goldie Hawn. And this wonderful actress who I've loved forever, and of course, I'm gonna make sure she looks great. And so I said, listen, you got to build me one of these lights or the thing. And he says, okay. I said, here's what's done before, and he goes, okay, no problem, I got it. So he shows up with the one that he's made, and it's beautiful. It's all machine shopped, it's polished, and it's gold. And so we nicknamed it the Goldie, of course. And at a certain point, Goldie signed it, so as we have a signature of Goldie Hawn on this particular light. So that's going to be a tough one for the rest of you guys to beat, I got to be honest with you.